Samech Vav, Chaf Hey Chaf Daled Kislev, Hey Samech Vav.
So to inyanim what the mensch reaches and achieves al yidei inyan hayikia the Torah. And we saw come over in the previous truth on talking the year the people and by Iyun Achayun in the inyan Torah Shabbat Peh, that he reaches into the Koyach HaYuli HaAtzmi in the Nefesh. In other words, that he reaches a Mokeh Atzmi within himself, when they get to the Gilui HaSichliim, which come, and that is produced Be'ikar through the Yagir, through the struggle and the effort. And Kamuvan, that's also Mamshik Nomaila, that he's able to understand the Torah, how it's also on a very high level. We saw that was the union of Chokhmah, Stimoa, and the Shorosh Abirurim in the Torah. That's the union of how Torah is Nimshot Mitzad Pnimius Chokhmah Stimoa. That was Mavur in the Drush of Avram Zoche in Vav Yom. The Chiddush we saw in this Drush, when you get to the results and the uftu, as you might call it in Yiddish, of the Yigiyah, the Torah, with the Ribui HaKushis, HaMokeh, in the Seichel, in the Askola, in that particular Indian that he's dealing, is the truth that he's Mavara, the Sigim and the Peselas, that were nimta in the dachas, albeit in a very delicate way, in the hasoga, and through, as we saw the marshal, the tremendous, what you might call spiritual warmth or heat, which is created by the friction of the kash, then he's literally able to purify. The marshal agashmi, that somebody has melted already Kislev, but he still finds in it a certain trace of impurity through the melting and remelting and sifting of it in the inyan of the heat. That's a form of resistance to the normal usage of the Kislev. Through that he's able to purify the Kislev and remove all traces of any impurity from the Kislev. What happened to Wise, by the way? I don't know.
He's in the bathroom.
Huh?
He's in the bathroom.
So we saw that was an extra inyan and a Milan Yeseda and a Milan Neisaf, even compared to the achievement the Hamavur over there in Avram Zochin Bar Biyomim, in the sense that by having to purify the etzem oil ha'torah shebe kol hasoger, or any muskal in which he's dealing in the Torah, particularly in Torah Shabbat Peh, the Kavanah is through that he comes to a oil bohir zach harbi yose in the etzem inyan of the Askola, and the mayor in that oil elyon and oil omuk for elyon wasn't shaykh even mitzad the normal aspect of pilpul, even mitzad that power in the study of Torah Shabbat Peh, which could bring him to the Koyach HaYuli HaAtzmi. There was needed an even deeper, what you might call obstinacy in the inyan of the profundity of the kashyas, the stiras, and the dikdukim. We saw that was on an even deeper and higher level, and we connected that precisely with the inyan of even higher than Oyer Chayza. We saw that Oyer Chayza was enough for the inyan Hamavuyin Avram Zoche, and here was an even deeper inyan that purified literally the very essence of the Askola. And through that, we saw that he goes even higher than the Helam Koyach HaYuli HaAtzmi, or the Helam HaAtzmi of Chokhmah. Out is Lamaila, in other words, the union of Chokhmah Stimoa. V'chulu, And he comes to the Torah, how it is Bamitius Atzmusis Borach. That was the expression that we saw. To the level of Torah, how it's miyuchad, ba'atzma, saying save, Yamasha Elokim Yoda Darko ve'enish lo Yoda enish Darko. And the men can't possibly, it's a human power, know that those in Yonim in Torah, and even to the point that we saw that was the immediate oyer of the Torah, she'ena b'chinas hamshocha klal. That's an Indian from oyer which is not by hamshocha. So the diktuk of that Indian was that the Rebbe said clearly that it's not that he reveals a new oimek in the actual seichel. There's no change in the actual dimension of the profundity of what he understands the details of the seichel. Oh, it's a Indian from light, it's a Indian from illumination and oyer, lichtigkeit. But there's meir oyer harbe zach v'dach and solol and bohir, as we saw the expression. Harbe yisa alidei that aveda in the Indian from Limud Torah. So then he goes beyond human experience of Torah, and he literally experiences Torah the way the Eivsha Kaviocha, Elokim Havin Darko, Shelo Yoda Enish Darko, of in that particular oifen of Limud, he comes to, and we brought down a famous story of Rabbi Zushia. The Maggid said about him that he gets it from the same place that the Yerushalmi gets it, when he gets a certain Indian that he had. In other words, at Kaviocha, the Minsh goes back into the divine sources of the Torah, not just the Torah how it's been nimsha. And therefore he said that that's our ear, which is Einam B'chinas Hamshocha Klal. It's also light which is not in a state of derivation. And we say that even when you learn it and you get that high, it's not that the ear is nimsha to you, but you elevated yourself to such a level where you become, as it were, nichlal in that ear. But not that the ear is mamish b'hamshocha. Like we talk about in Tanya, in Geras Shara Yifa Vermuna, the Alter Rebbe, in Perigimel, he talks about there's a ear, HaShemesh, for example, which is nimshach mi HaShemesh, and then there's that same oil, how it's kolul b'moya HaShemesh mamish. It's like inside the Shemesh before it actually went out from the Shemesh. Over there he says there's a much higher in the oil, but that's a oil dovuk and kolul in the ma'or, and it's not really begolu yubeha, or behamshocha betecha cholo. Cholo meaning space. So similarly here we have to say that what the Rebbe said, that you come to the Shashui HaMelech, and you come to a higher level of oil which is not b'chinas hamshocha klal. We have to say that that's the oil, HaTorah, how it's mamish kolul b'techa atzmus, and therefore it's not in a form of derivation, v'gilui, evenly after what you masik that high, but then, that's in your fanaliyah, what you're nichlal and bottle of kolul, in that oil. So then when the mensch talks divrei Torah on our level, he's not saying how humans learn the Torah, he just becomes like a form of revealing in Yonim of Torah Haleha Mitzad the Kavona Elokis. And that's what we saw when I get to all the Rabbeim and other great people, that their even a limud wasn't a limud. Li'achmam was in to be Megala, the Torah for the Klal Yisrael. They brought down the Torah, and their words became Divrei Elokim Chayiv. That's well known, a famous expression that Siddur is called Divrei Elokim Chayiv. It's the words of the Eivashter. So we saw that was the new inyan and the extra wondrous result that occurs through the study of Torah B'iyun or B'yagia, particularly how it is in Torah Shebal Peh in general, and especially in Talmud Bavli. We saw the whole mile of Talmud Bavli at inyan. And we saw that was the inyan of Avaya Elokim Yatzmiya T'dochel Sehilo. And we brought down from the Likutei Torah that there's a inyan in the Shem Elokim, which is beyond the normal usage of Shem Elokim, what its inyan is a helem and a shield to the Shem Avaya. but there's a inyan in Elokim which is much higher than the Shem Havaya even, and Legabi that, the Shem Havaya itself is called like a Helem, Legabi such a Madrega, and nonetheless that's called Elokim. and that's the inyan of the Shem Havaya Benikud Elokim. In other words, the Shem Havaya takes on itself a special nikud usage of the vowels in the Shem Havaya, but that indicates a madrega which is really much higher than the Shem Havaya itself. And that's the shoresh of this Gilui Oyer in Torah, and the mensch what he learns Torah alidei those biruim and those efforts that he made, that he comes into that in from Oyer Torah, how it is in the Helem of the Atzmim Hamish. And we said that was the Shashuyim. That's the tain of the Torah, the Eibishter, how he in his own self is misaneik, and he feels kaviyochol, the gila of the tain of how it is in the Eibishter, which is even higher than the whole Helem Atzmi Chochma that we saw. You can reach through Yegia or even Kloli, and that was what was more in the previous Maimon. And I finished up by saying, "V'zeu davke b'talmud Bavli." Shalimud hu b'filpul b'ribui halomes v'esteirim lahoyim miteich hashecho davke. So that was the middle of the struggle and the effort in Talmud Bavli. It was only that needed an explanation how it tried to say that such high understandings that a kol in the Helem Chochma, the Helem Atzmi, the Koach HaYuli of Chochma, in the effort. How could we describe those type of soldiers as still having in them Sigim Emperor Apasilas? And that's what we have to say. That even though they come from such a high level, there's still in them the Indian of a certain trace of Apasilas. So we're going to see as we go along here that that's, we could suggest, that's like the Alter Rebbe brings in Kodesh chapter 26. That Koloid that were in Golos and Koloid that the glory of Torah has to come through, particularly the Avir of the Golos, how this in Chutzaloras. Then the Torah is to a certain extent affected by the Avir of the Golos and the Avir of the Helem Vahester of the world, so that even on the deepest inyonim in Torah there's a certain trace of small aspects and delicate aspects of like improper material which have got into the very hasogas how they are in Torah. Therefore, b'shas the mensch gets to such a high purity, and he's learning that he's able to be mavarer even that, and then he brings the Torah to how it will be close to the way it will be learned. Liyosid, love it. When the Mashiach will learn Torah with the Klal Yisrael, then he'll learn in such a way that it won't be shaykh any puselas klal. No, that'll be the purity of Torah, how it is mamish biatzmusa is barach, and that's the inyan of Elokim Havin Darko. We have to say that that's only going to be really shayat liyosid. However, the hachana to that is by reaching such a level in Torah, we are able to purify so that's what we have to suggest. That not that the Torah mitzad atzmi has got peselas. The embassy inyan from Torah in its own right has no pieces of peselas at all. No, that's the Yemitis inyan of Torah, how will be liyosid, etc. But due to the tremendous readers of all the inyan hagolas, in particular, the Rekordim Beis Hamikdash and the reader into the golas, then in every aspect there was beginning with a Fedei Tzadas, in every aspect of any gilui Eloki, the way it's mislabish, Bezeho Ilam, Afilo in Torah, then there's a mixture of Teva Vorah. In a very delicate even, there can even be certain little improper traces, like his Masbel there in Geros HaKodesh, the Alter Rebbe, that to a certain extent that's the moki of any kasha. That's where the actual kashas themselves come from. So that when you fight through the kasha, you've, as it were, fought against, or you've in some way been moitzi, lechutz, you brought out into an externity a certain small trace of Helem in the peselas, as you might call it, of the golas in the actual hasoga itself, even though it's hasoga from Torah. So now we're going to say that that's all shaykh be'ika in the Talmud how it was in Ovel. Al, he says, Talmud Yerushalmi, Rubam halachis pesukes, Tame halachis, Kamoisha Hoya Kabbalah. Now, Kabbalah doesn't mean Tersa Kabbalah. What it means, how it was in reception, we got it from one generation to the other, and the necessity for all the detailed explanations and all the kashiyas is to try and come to what was really the original thing that was given over by Moshe Rabbeinu and the other great early pastors of the Torah down into the generations before it became the necessity for pilpul, because the whole pilpul came in after there had already been differences of opinion. That difference of opinion because the Torah underwent an certain unclarity due to this whole mixture of the Teyvora b'toich inyan haTorah. So therefore, it was necessary this whole Aveda of Bira. However, in the Yerushalmi, there tends to be very brief discussions every now and then with a kasha and a teretz, or many sugyas, just statements of halachas and brief proofs for them, and so on and so forth, as anybody is familiar with the Eifim. The limud and the way the Talmud Yerushalmi is drawn up. In other words, not that there's a long struggle on the part of the different chachomim to try and prove what was the original Kabbalah, how do we know what was the Kabbalah, but it's quite clear what was the Kabbalah. We just say that this and this was what is Makubal B'Yodeinu. Avaloi B'Ribui Kushiyas, not through having to go through a whole series of different discussions and kashiyas one after the other until we reach some form of maskana. Vehine be'emes if shaloima the bnei Eretz Yisrael hoyu loindim bakvash kafar rishona v'lehi giu lo erayem as chas v'sholim tezeh if shaloima klal be'adarabah arein Torah keteros Eretz Yisrael. So if he said, then we're going to say that the Talmud Bavli is just a few, Talmud Yerushalmi is just brief statements, very, very small necessity for people, occasional traces of it, but not Be'ikar. Then it would seem that the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael, they must have been able to learn without all the pilpul. They must have had certain Kabbalahs beyond them, which made it, in inverted commas, easier for them to learn. Therefore, things just were begilui lifneihem bli all the Torah. Well, that would tend to indicate that they didn't really reach the Helam Ha'achmi and all the profundities of the divine Elokim Yoda Dak, with the whole thing that we just saw. It would follow that they were learning more or less just the way they saw at first glance. That's the way they got it, and that's the way they get over. So where would be the perfection of all their Aveda in the Inif and Limud HaTorah? And that would tend to indicate a certain lack of Yagiyah and a lack of Shleimus in Oifen of learning Torah on the part of the Bnei Eretz Yisrael. Well, Bnei Eretz Yisrael, I mean, those people were found in Eretz Yisrael at that time. And that's very difficult to say. I mean, some of the great Chachmei Talmud Yerushalmi are Chachomim Gedolim Vatzumim, and some of them even went to Bavel and they joined in discussions in Bavel, and they were seen to be Chachomim Atzumim, even Legavi the Bnei Bavel, when it comes to their greatness in the depth and the source of their learning in Torah was a surprise and a longing to be compared to on part of all the Chachomim, even though they were in Bavel. So we can't very well say that the even of the limud of the people in Eretz Yisrael was without all shleimus that we find through the Yagir and Talmud Bavli. So if that's the case, then what's their secret? What's the secret of the Bnei Eretz Yisrael? That they were able to learn in a much briefer and more, as it were, freed way, but without Hashem suggesting that they missed out on all the profundities of the Chokhmah. And therefore he says we can't say that they learned just with first glance. But ain't Torah Keteros Eretz Yisrael. It's well known when you study. So the answer of the pshat, what does it mean when you say ain't Torah Keteros Eretz Yisrael? What's it attached? Does that mean that there's no Torah like the Torah that was taught in Eretz Yisrael? What it means is there's no Torah like when you learn in Eretz Yisrael Torah. Follow? So it's a question, which is the truth. Therefore, we have to say that both of them are true. But Rabbi Ika, the Rebbe is referring here to the pshat of Ein Torah, Torah Eretz Yisrael, the type of Torah which was produced by Eretz Yisrael and learned and mishgale al yidei the chachamim in Eretz Yisrael. That's the highest that there is. No better than that. Ein Torah Torah Eretz Yisrael. So if that's the case, then it's exactly the opposite. The Torah would seem that Dafka with less Yegiya, those in Eretz Yisrael reach higher madrigas, and that seems to be against the whole principle that Dafka through the Riboy Yegiya in Talmud Bava, then you come to the Emes Shleimus of the Limud HaTorah. And therefore he said, on the contrary, from that would appear that the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael are greater. Ein Torah Torah Eretz Yisrael. So in order to answer that kasha, the Rebbe now suggests the following terms. K'de'isa b'reya mahemna, reya mahemna is a portion of the Zohar Kodesh. The kol kushia hi misitra de klipa, shehein gvuris koshes, v'al yidei shemakshe u'metalets arehu mavara gvuris eilu. Well, we just pointed out that there's a mitzad the of the golus, particularly, and the kushiyas are like a helem. Each kushia is like a certain impurity in the actual svara, but that leads the real intelligent and conscientious studier to come up with a problem. And so what he's mataritz that problem, and he answers it, and he pushes away a certain helem vesta that we described as found in the actual asogas of Torah itself. That's what we were just dealing with. So he said through the union of the kasha, and then he eventually answers a good teretz, then he's mavara those gavuris. He pushes the union of the shlita, of the clippers, out of the union of Torah. It's like getting rid of a certain small trace of impurity. So if others, if he said that wherever there's a lot of kasha, it's a sign that they've got a lot of and therefore they need the kashas. So that's part of the Torah. So when he goes, "V'hine yedua de beretz Yisrael nimshach hashpoa me'elam ha'yitzira, or b'chutz ha'eretz me'elam ha'asiyah." It's put down in many drushim from the Shem Arizal and Shem Kislev Arizal that the divine hashpoa in Eretz Yisrael is a high type of hashpoa. In other words, that in Eretz Yisrael is really me'iyah the oil of Olam HaYitzira. And in Chutzlot is me'iyah the oil of Olam HaSiyah. So what we get over here now is the oil of Olam HaYitzira. That's what we get. So everybody should be floating around, coming up into Glor High Madregas. From the moment he reaches Eretz Yisrael, he's breathing the air of Olam HaYitzira. So it's one, if I'm not mistaken, the Friedrich Rebbe, when he went in the Tzvas, he was here, we spoke about it once. How the Friedrich Rebbe said that in Tzvas, you can already feel the Aviv of Olam HaYitzira. You already begin to feel it very noticeably. In Tzvas, the Aviv of Olam HaYitzira. In other words, in the whole Eretz Yisrael, the Aviv of Tzvas especially, you feel it. But that doesn't mean that you don't feel in Chachabar. Does it? Yeah? You feel it in Chachabar also, if you have the proper attitude. It's anyway, for so it's brought down in Amayim, the Rebbe Nishma said in another drush, the Rebbe says that it comes down also through a siyah, but it only just passes through a siyah. It's not mislabshin. That's what we call derech ma'avir. Derech ma'avir means that there's a certain symptom of Olam HaSiyah in the oil of Olam HaYitzira. To bring it down, that we should be able to, live in Olam HaSiyah and not just float up into Olam HaYitzira the whole time when we're here in our oil. But it only comes down not by way of Islapshus in Asiya, but just by way of passing through almost. But that passing through has a certain minimal necessary effect. The Elo in Chutzalot, it comes through Yitzir, and then it's mislavish in Asiya, and it's in Olam Asiya K'moishahu. Amamele, that's a title there. Levushim of Olam Asiya Ashela on the Avia. So we understand that because you're becoming learning to be a sheikh or something, I understand all sorts of good inyanim is there's not a chance to come late.
No, I didn't. I guess I don't know. I didn't realize. I thought because everybody was telling me 2:30 upstairs himself, so that's where it was. Remember, I said he didn't think anyone was having.
All right, Meisha. So what whatever you thought, you'll have to correct it in the future date. Anyway, for Be'ez Hashem, for at least a couple of days of Hanukkah. So it comes out of he said the hashpoah in Eretz Yisrael is really avir of Olam HaYetzirah. It's just gone through in a sort of passing way, certain levushim of Olam HaAsiyah. Elo b'chutzalot, it's Mislapshus, and the levushim of Olam HaAsiyah have a shlita and a rule over the inyan. It becomes literally part of Olam HaAsiyah, and in Eretz Yisrael, it's only as it were partially in Olam HaAsiyah. Over really, the oil is of Olam HaYetzirah. Kach mavua in certain Nakodas in Kislev. So it comes out of the type of literally spiritual air, and even for that matter, even maybe lower than spiritual air, in Eretz Yisrael is a much higher madrega than it is in Chutzalot. So that, therefore, the oil having come directly from Olam HaYetzirah into the life of Eretz Yisrael means that there's pushed less shlita of the pesoilas than what there is in the levushim of Olam HaAsiyah, which are mamish malbish the oil how it comes into Chutzalot. And therefore in Eretz Yisrael there's less traces of the pesoilas in the whole effect of the avir of Eretz Yisrael. And that's what we see that the Medrash says, brought down a Medrash Rabbah, and even in the Gemara it's also brought a Lashon Daimel is there, that avira de Eretz Yisrael machkim, that the air of Eretz Yisrael makes you wise, or gives you chachma. We hope that that's being makuyim by all of these people, that the air in Eretz Yisrael. But unfortunately we see that if you're not tuned in and you don't go the right way, then the avira de Eretz Yisrael makes you a typish meya piyamim kocher legabi anybody in Chutzalot. That's what we see, Rahman in Itzlah, what's happening in front of our eyes. We won't talk about things like that. We have to be same and those rather pious and somewhat positively optimistic people who I met in Chutzalot. And they said, "Oh, don't worry, the Eivshter will help. We have to have tochen, That's very nice of them to say. But you're putting into danger 6 million Yidden, one of the most terrible dangers that's ever been in history. And so people say, "Oh, just have to tochen, don't worry." Anyway, Eretz Yisrael has an effect on those who want to have emes chachma, so it sort of helps them and blesses them with emes chachma. If you don't, you want to go and nachlev and the goyim, you want to bagrov yourself and bow down b'shtachavoya gemura to Esau and to Avodah Zarah, then Eretz Yisrael says you want to be a tipish, then you can be a tipish 100 more over here than what you were on Chutzalot. Anyway, whatever, however, it shouldn't be. The air of Eretz Yisrael, the air in Eretz Yisrael is a avira kedosha, avira elyoina, which comes from Olam HaYetzirah. Very fascinating idea. So there was a Darabah. I'm sorry, where are we? Of a Chutzalot, yeah. Olam HaAsiyah. We do a gam kain. The Ika klippes hein Olam I see. The Ike Shlita of the Klippers is in this world, Olam Asiyah, not in Olam Yitzira. So if the oil now is coming from Olam Yitzira, then it doesn't have so much the hold and the rule of the Klippers. V'lachem b'chutz la'aretz gozru tuma al aviro shemetame miklipas noiga u'mishum ze b'chutz la'aretz i efshel lahoyer es oyer ha'emet ki im al hitei ribi kushiyas shemachshichim u'ma'alim im al oyer al hitei ribu pupil, etc., etc. And ever says the Rebbe that the Ike Shlita, the Klippers, is Dafke Olam Asiyah, and therefore in Chutzlot our sages were goizer a tuma on Aviro the Eretz Yisrael. I'm sorry, Aviro the Chutzlot. And the Gemara said in Masechta Gittin, not 5 in the beginning, that our sages were goizer the Indian from tuma just on the air of Chutzlot. But again, there's certain halachas. It doesn't mean that if a Kohen goes to Chutzlot, that's Tomah. But what it means is that, but again, to certain inyonim, you can't have tahara, you can't become toyer, bishlemus, in Chutzlot in a way that would permit you to use certain taharas, certain things which are toyer, al-pidin, or to enter the Beis HaMikdash of Dvarim Ke'el. If you stepped out into Chutzlot, then you've lost it all and you have to start all over again. Because there was a certain tuma nigza by our sages just on the air of Chutzlot. Fascinating. But say it is. You know, when you go to Chutzlot, you come back to it, so it's kedai, to live like a mikveh and to start working at getting back into the Avira where it says Yisrael. So why is that? So the Rebbe said, because in Chutzlot, the Levushim of Asiyah have a hold, and Asiyah is where the Ike Moder HaKlippers, the Ike Klippers are in Asiyah. Now that doesn't mean to say there's no dachas of Shebedachas of Klippers in Olam HaYitzira. Even in Olam HaBriah there's a certain trace as one of Klippers. But the principal control of the Klippers is Dafke B'Olam HaAsiyah, and therefore and that is Shayat Dafke B'Chutzlot Oretz. So those inyonim apply B'Chutzlot Oretz, and in Eretz Yisrael they only apply in a very delicate oifan. And Chas v'Sholom to say even B'Zman Hazeh that there's a tumah in the Avira of Eretz Yisrael. So albeit, says the Rebbe, it's only Metamim Klippus Noiga. It's not Mamish Gimel Klippus Atameyas Mamish, and there was other touches become Mamish Tomah, and everything becomes Tomah. But it's like a preventation that doesn't allow the completion and the perfection of certain halachas beneged to Tahara in Chutzlot. And the reason for that is that the Rebbe, the fact that the Ike Shlita of the Oilam in which are the Klippers is in Chutzlot. But in Eretz Yisrael, you can't have the union of and therefore in Chutzlot it's impossible to gain the emes of Torah ki im alidei ribui kushiyas shemafshichim u'malimim al ha'oyer. You have to go through different levels in kushiyas. What each level of the kashiyas is, albeit a more delicate helem, but the kashiyas are all a form, as we said, of expression of the shlit of the Klippers. That we get rid of one kashiyah, then you go into more delicate kashiyah, you get that, then a more delicate one. Each one of them is a form of an expression of the helem v'hester of that shlita of the Klippers in Olam HaAsiyah. But through the ribui pupil shemavara bazeh kol asigim upseilah, like we just saw, the emes of pupil of Torah and the emes of Yigiyah brings you to clean out and purify all the mushkolets in Torah from all of those traces of what you might call waste material and small impurities. Shehu inyan bira the Klippus nega. That's the inyan what is written in the Kislev Arizal. The whole idea of the Avedus HaBirudim is bi'ikar. That's in Klippus nega. Alidei zeh dafke bo Elohero emes, precisely through that you come into the oil ha'emes, like we saw in both. First of all, mitzad the shurish, or the madrega in which you understand, and then the purity of the light. As we saw earlier with the whole. וכמו האריזל, שהויה מקשה כל כך בלימוד ההלוכס, עד שהויה מזיע, שעל ידי זה נשבר כוח הסטרא אחרא, ומאיר אור האמת. So it's well known and brought down in many stories, how the reign of Chaim Vital, he brings down in the Sefer, Pri Chaim, also in the Sefer Kavanah, that he writes that he saw his teacher, the Arizal, that he used to learn Gemara, and Nigla used to learn in 7 different madregas, 7 different eifam. 6 of them were Keneged the Sheishi Shemei Achoyo, and the 7th one was Keneged the Yom Shabbos. And when he learned the Nigla and the Gemara, but Keneged Yom Shabbos, he learned in a very different way. But when he was learning Keneged the Sheishi Shemei Achoyo, when he was learning it in the other 6 ways that he used to learn it, then he wrote Ishi Oisei Shahoya Mishiageya Ad Shaya Mazia Mamish. The reason is to be mafalpul so much in the Rishonos of the Gemara until he actually sweated. Gave off sweat, as he stated in the Kislev Arizal. So it's brought down the view of why did he have to do that? Because he was machsheh kol kat. He used to have so many kashiyas, but limud halaches, meaning nigla in general, ad shehoya mazia. Shalidei zeh nishba koach hasitra achra umeya oyer ha'emet. So it's well known that the sweat in our bodies is a form of waste material that goes out. When you sweat, the body gives out certain materials that it didn't want to keep anyway through the frictional action of the usage of exercise of the body and sometimes heat which comes from outside the body, then it gives out this waste material. So that's a marshal for what the Arizal was doing when he learned in the 6th day that he knew that he had to, as it were, bring out certain traces of sailors from the Svaris of the Teresh Peh. So he used to learn in such a way that he frictionized his whole system, his whole self, to the point that he would sweat. And that was like in his body, Kipshute, he was carrying out and showing the oven of the birur in what he was learning. So when he learned the 7th way, Keneged Yom Shabbos, he didn't do that. He wasn't even good there. You're not supposed to learn on Shabbos, even from Biro at Kedikah. It has to be less. It's got to be more the Inim from the Emes Mitzadachma, etc. So there was the Rebbe Kunta. So the question is that everybody knows that at least an important part of his life, the Arizal was here in Eretz Yisrael. So and when Rabbeinu Chaim Vital saw him doing that, that was another talk, because Rabbeinu Chaim Vital only knew the Arizal after he came to Eretz Yisrael. So it's a little bit of a steer to what we just said, that in Eretz Yisrael there's not Meir Ad Kedikach, the whole duet. So we have to say that the difference is the way you learn in Eretz Yisrael purely mitzad Eretz Yisrael. In other words, Talmud Yerushalmi, the way the Chachmei Yerushalayim Eretz Yisrael learned their Teresh Peh originally in the Talmud Yerushalmi. He's saying Nochanami, it was led. Although this is talking about the Arizal was learning Talmud Bavli, and he was being Mishagei, and the halachas of Talmud Bavli. So even though he was in Eretz Yisrael, that is really Talmud Chutzlah, it's Talmud Bavli, and therefore there was still a necessity to, as it were, treat it as if you're in Eretz as if you're in Chutzlah Ora. In Mamela, the same, you learn even here in Eretz Yisrael, I feel in Talmud Petrim, which is noch a Hecher Madrege, Stam, even in Stam, when you're in the Sal, or wherever you are, then you got to learn the Torah Shabbat Peh, but Torah Pilpul V'Yegia, and if you want to sweat Ma Teva Ma, or Manoim, that would be wonderful, and it would indicate just how you're really getting involved in the Yonim, because that's Be'ikah a Torah which was produced by those who were in Chutzlah Ora. I said, well, in that case, if we're here in Eretz, so why do we need to learn it, because we'll see there's a necessity in this Managolas until we actually Zeich the Mashiach to learn in that way. So even though we're here in Eretz Yisrael, there we have to come on to the second shot. In Aim Torah, Eretz Yisrael means that being in Eretz Yisrael helps you to learn Torah incomparably better. There's no doubt a great siyata d'shmaya in your learning of the Inyanim Alei Mitzad Talmud Bavli in Eretz Yisrael, and particularly in Kfar Chabad, and particularly in Tom Chatmimim. All of those miles come together to help you to learn the Inyan of Talmud Bavli better. So that's what's not a kasha. We're talking about the Arizal learn how he was learning Talmud Bavli. Aber in Ochanami the Inyan the Arizal learned in Eretz Yisrael, Mitzad the Inyan of Eretz Yisrael. It's well known when after he reached Eretz Yisrael in the Kabbalah and in Pnimis HaTorah, he just went up incomparably even compared to how he was in Chutzalat, Chidut, Mavur, and Botan, in Svarim. So when it was Inyanim that weren't shy to the Inyan of Bavli, Davke Talmud Bavli, Teres Chutzalat Oret, then he really learned like the unbelievable mile that we just saw of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, Avu is a B'nai Eretz Yisrael. And when he says B'nai Eretz, it means that Chachomim, they produce a Talmud Bavli. Shishom Eina Hester Kol Kach B'nokel L'Hagia L'Oer Emes Ve'ein Tzricha L'Ribui Kushiyas She'oer Hoya Meya Lehem B'derech Oer Yosha She'ein Dova Mastir. So there was the Rebbe, the Chachomim in Eretz Yisrael didn't have that whole union of the Helen V'Esther or the Klippus how it is in Chutzerot. And therefore they were going Malachatchila, ahead of the post starting point. They were starting like the starting lines, and they want to give somebody a good chance. They put him up in front of everybody. He gets a start ahead. They were starting off Malachatchila on a high madrega. And therefore it wasn't necessary for them to reach the whole Oyer Ho'emes. Of the halachas, is in the maskana of a Bavli, they were able to reach it Malachatchila mitzad the Maila of Eretz, mitzad Eretz, and therefore they were able easier to reach that final maskana and the emes madrega of Elokim Yoda Darka with the whole Inyan, not through the Ribui Kushiyas. They didn't need the Ribui Kushiyas because the oil used to be made to them, but the oil Yosha She'ein Dova Mastir. So that's amazing. We were just saying before that everything which comes by oil Yosha doesn't really have the mila of what comes to you through oil Chayza. So later on we're going to have to face that one way or another. We're going to have to come to terms. If they didn't learn in Eretz Yisrael, Mamish with all the miles of Oyer Chayza, then how did they reach the Oyer? I honestly want to say it was there anyway, mitzad the fact that Eretz Yisrael is higher. Therefore they didn't need to make such a tremendous effort, but we said that the very effort itself is the milah. So if they don't have that, then how do they do it? How do they reach this ultimate point of clarifying everything in such a perfect way that we saw before? So therefore, the Rebbe first of all begins by comparing them to a Inyan in Torah, which it's enough for that to be Nimsha Ba'er Yosha. That's a very interesting comparison. He said, let's take the written Torah. Shemeya Ur Torah Kamoy Shehi, Bepinas Chochma Brura, Va'ein Tzorich Birur Oid, Shekvar Hi Mevureres Laila, U'Me'ira Lamata Bepinas Giloi Kamoy Shehi Bekoyach Oyer Ho'em, Bepinas Oyer Ho'emet, Kamoy Shkosu Mochim Acher. Kamoy Kain Hu Bedugma Kazois Betalmud Yerushalmi. So here we see a fascinating point. A point particular pillar. The Rebbe said that the way the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael learned Talmud Yerushalmi, and the way the Talmud Yerushalmi was misgala to them, is al derech v'dinya from Torah shebiksav is beklal misgala in the world. And the Torah shebiksav, he says, is melchatchila on such such a high level that it doesn't need any more pura, because anything that might have been there, might have been any trace of Pesailas with the El Inyanim has been removed by the fact that it was mamish given us by the Eibshter at Sinai directly, in a way that it doesn't undergo any change and it doesn't undergo any necessity to be purified, as it were, anymore. It's Malachatchila Tei. He said the Indian for Torah Shabbal Peh, and particularly Talmud Bavli, well, that goes down into a lower level. It comes into a different, or even that the Inyanim of Chutzalorats and the Inyanim from the Shlitas of the Kislev can affect it. However, the Torah Shabbat is given from the very beginning in such a way that it's, as it were, beyond and indifferent to all of those Inyanim. And therefore, he said, that's the Maila of Chokmah Brura. The expression of Chokmah Brura occurs in our sages in different places. That's literally a purified Chokmah right from the very beginning. That's the union of the written Torah Shabbat Ksav. And I mean, they are like the Chokmah Eretz Yisrael, like the Torah Shabbat Ksav. So her intelligent reader, his eyes jolt out on stalks. And he jumps with amazement and surprise at the obvious kasha which occurs with anything like that. Nobody buying the kasha here? And what is it when you learn Gemara? The trouble is that you guys are all sort of lazy when it comes to learning Gemara. You don't like to learn something else. You'd like to learn Smila, you like to learn this. I mean, it's not too much Gemara, not schwitz and horror and too much in Gemara. And what do you do? What does it look at first glance? At the whole union of the pilpul, the sugyas in Talmud Bavli is to work out what did the Torah really mean. On every sugya, so my crow, what is the pasuk? And then once we get the pasuk, maybe it means this, maybe it means something else. All these different poo-pooing back and forth, sometimes in just working out what is the pshat of a pasuk, how does it work? And then we find that there are differing opinions, la halacha, in how I teach a pasuk. One teaches this way, and another teaches it. He understands the pasuk bo'if and acher, and that becomes a aike. In the whole pilpul and kushas, halach v'chazor, in the sugyas, in Talmud Bavli. So how can you tell me that the Torah should be ksav? Well, that's a pure, it's already, everything's worked out, doesn't need any more new as it is, it's all mamish k'moy shuhu. The whole pilpul in the Gemara is in the psukim of the Torah. Nobody thought of the kanjian. So if you never thought of the kasha, I can't really expect you to have a Torah. You're not even bothered by the kasha. So we have to say a pili to get out. We have to say that the answer is that problems are not mitzad the Torah. In other words, that the Eibshter gave the Torah and it's got all the answers to it. It's all, everything is there in the Torah, and really the Eibshter knows what every pasuk means and what it's supposed to indicate. For example, the El Torah brought down in Tanya not long ago when he got us before we got back to the beginning again. We saw the whole thing. Every pasuk which deals with a certain mitzvah can reveal us all sorts of different details, about tefillin. What is teitofis, how teitofis, when, how big it have to be, have to have certain things you got Kabbalah, certain things you don't have Kabbalah, you got to work up in the pasuk. A whole big arena is in the pasuk. What does it mean? We're tired. What does it mean? How do you do it? Lapur, etc., etc. So the answer is that not the problem is with the Torah. The Torah knows exactly what it means. The Eibshter knows exactly what the Torah means. The Torah knows exactly what it means. The problem is that since you're down here in Olam Asiyah, and the Eibshter planted you down here on Nishom in Olam Asiyah, and Olam Asiyah is called the Selam Ba'ester, and the far, you know what is going on. And when it comes to the Inyan of the Hasogas and the Inyonim, how they are, Mishlabish in the Torah Shebaal Peh, then there's already a certain trace of problematism there that came mitzad that inability of Olam Asiyah to stand in the Madrega of Olam Tzilas. And therefore, if you look carefully, you'll notice that the Alter brings over there in that famous Igeras, he brings that the Mishnah is in Olam Tzira, for example, and Talmud is in Bria. Well, that's very fascinating. Talmud is even higher than the Mishnah, they stay taught. And he says, but Mikra is Ber Atzila. Take a look and you'll see. Mikra is Ber Atzila. Mikra is Ber Atzila. Mikra is already finished. It's already the Eivishter. Atzila is one thing with Telekus. The Mikra is the same. The problem is the Makablim, not that the Psukim in the Torah are the problem. The problem are the Makablim and where they are. They're in Azamin Oilam. Where there's such a shlita are the clippers, and such a shlita are the kushis which come inside the clippers, and if you can't really know where you are, and you've got to work through all that in order to get what did the Torah really mean. And therefore he said that the Talmud is in Bria. The Talmud is in Bria. The Talmud knows what it really means, ultimately speaking. Yeah, but in order to get to that, you've got to swear. Over the Etzem Uftua, the Talmud is close to Atzilus, because it tells you ultimately what is the Emet, what did the Torah really mean. There was the Rebbe, the Maila, the Chachomim in Talmud Yerushalmi is that, like we said about Reb Zuzi, he says it over in the same market where the Yerushalmi got it. They're very close to the Emes market of the Torah. They're in Eretz Yisrael and they're Elamai Tzira. They don't have all the Elevast. Remember, they get it like it is from the real man, the real McCoy, and they don't need to go through the whole union of the Kashis and the Yagiyah. What they're going to do is, that's the union of the Ma'ariv. Remember, they're bedugmas as a V Torah Shabiksav. The Mamish on the same, almost on the same, you might call wicket as the Torah Shabiksav itself, to use a lavdildik expression. Edefach, לפי זה קונטקסט. אבל זה בחוץ לארץ, נשלביש אור התורה. The light of the Torah became levushim amalimim. In other words, the Torah went in Chutz La'aretz, it was put on certain levushim. V'heim b'chinas kash v'teven shebetorah. He said that's the straw and the how do you call it? Kash, how do you call kash? This piece of chaff, this waste material in the Torah, which is melavar or lahasir ha'elomus. You have to take it all away. So it's not so much mitzad the Torah, it's mitzad the fact that people are in, mention are in, and they don't have bekoyach to understand, because the avir is shilat of everything that's there. But it's also mislabish to a certain extent on the union of the Torah, and therefore you have to fight to remove all of those in your hand. Therefore he said, "Zeu mailas Talmud Yerushalmi al Talmud Bavli, afeishav meya bo b'chinas hachokma bruda, kemoishe hila maila shu inas gilui uir godel mi huid." He said, "This is a revelation of divine light." Like we saw, the ultimate beauty in Bavli is to get to the light. You know, to even though you're rolling on a very high madrega already, but to get to the oil. Like we saw, there's a difference between understanding something but knowing what it really shines and what does it really light up to. What does it add up to? As we pointed out in the earlier classes. Now, Amela said the Rebbe, the Talmud Yerushalmi, they knew they could see the infant Ur Torah in a much more direct way than what the Chachmei Bavel did. And therefore there's a great mileage in Talmud Yerushalmi. But since we're still in the Golas, then the ultimate Psach Din nowadays can only be according to Talmud Bavli, because it's the Torah of the Golas, and it's the Nesinas Koyach of the Inyan HaGolas. So it's only that the intelligent reader now it says, but we just said earlier that Dafke, through that Riva Yagi and through struggle and all this, the extra struggle itself, that's what brings you to an encounter with higher Madregas. If the Talmud, the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael, the Chachmei Shas, Yerushalmi, they were so close to the Emes, they got everything directly without going through all the different Yeridas and without them being themselves inside those Yeridas. Then where's their mile of the Yigir? Again, look, something seems to be not quite, it doesn't seem to quite get together here. If they get it all without Yigir, then look, something's still lacking. There's some secret that seems to be missing if they don't have the whole Yigir. So I'm now going to do a tantalizing thing. I'm going to leave you with that question. And anyway, if you look carefully in the Mahim, you'll see that anyway occurs. But it seems to me that there's another member of the Shkita fraternity that he didn't show up to the class. So we have to make sure that the other members of that particular fraternity will inform him. Anyway, that's a question that will now occur. And hopefully tomorrow we'll already be learning Torah how it is Mitzad Melech HaMashiach. That'll be higher than all of the